Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, so today we're unpacking something genuinely fascinating. We're looking at this remarkably brief but honestly incredibly dense ancient text, and it tackles nothing less than the entire human condition. Specifically, we're going to trace the spiritual journey of Adam. It's this profound look at creation, failure, and ultimate redemption, all packed into just a few short sentences. There is just so much meaning layered in here, and we're going to break it all down together. Let's get right into it. But right off the bat, before we get into all the heavy philosophical stuff, I want to pose a pretty provocative question to you. How long does paradise actually last before the fall? When we think of Eden, we usually imagine this vast, timeless, golden age of absolute perfection, right? Well, today, we are going to uncover a timeline directly from our source material that completely shatters that assumption. Keep that question in the back of your mind as we go. Okay, let's dive into this first phase, the consequence of sin. We really need to start with the immediate physical aftermath of Adam's action, marking a moment of profound cosmic recalibration. Listen to the sheer gravity of this decree from the text. God says, "Earth thou art, and into the earth whence I took thee thou shalt go." Wow. Just let that settle for a second. There's this immense philosophical weight to the idea of returning exactly to your origins. It's not just a simple punishment, it's literally a physical unwinding of creation. It's hitting the reset button and bringing things all the way back to square one. So the text maps Adam's consequence directly back to his origin, creating this perfect, unbreakable cycle. Step 1, he's formed from the earth. Step 2, because of his actions, he gets exiled from paradise. And step 3, he's returned to the exact earth he came from. It is a startlingly symmetrical view of justice. You come from the dust, you return to the dust. And why this matters to us is that it shows ancient justice isn't just about arbitrary anger. It's a balanced, cyclical equation. But if we just stopped reading there, we'd miss the entire point. Which brings us to the next big theme, the promise of return. Because right in the middle of this decree, the tone completely shifts. The text actually gives us this incredible micro-focus. God sends him away, quote, but does not wish to ruin him for all years to come. Think about how powerful that is. Does not wish to ruin him. That speaks directly to our own modern understanding of second chances, doesn't it? Failure, even cosmic, paradise-losing failure, isn't intended to be a permanent, unrecoverable ruin. The exile has a boundary. There is a really deep empathy built right into the architecture of this consequence. We're presented with a super stark contrast here. On one hand, we have complete ruin, which is explicitly rejected. The text literally says, "I will not ruin thee." And then, on the other hand, we have a second coming, which is actively promised. This contrast really highlights the sheer grace hidden within the act of exile itself. The earth isn't some permanent garbage dump for a failed creation. It's more like a temporary waiting room. So the absolutely crucial point is right here. Then I can again take thee at my second coming. This completely changes how we view Adam's spiritual journey. The text clearly frames this exile not as some tragic end state, but as a temporary, purposeful journey toward restoration. God is essentially saying, look, I'm putting you back exactly where I found you, precisely so I can come back and get you later. All right, having established that grand theological arc, we arrive at our next phase, the shocking timeline. And I mean shocking. The text gives us a highly specific mathematical fact regarding Adam's actual time in paradise. 5.5. What is genuinely staggering here is just how impossibly tiny that number is. 5.5. We're talking about the pinnacle of creation, an environment of literal ultimate perfection, and this number represents the entire duration it lasted? To see it right from the source, the text explicitly states, "And Adam was 5.5 hours in paradise." Seriously, just let that sink in for a second. 5.5 hours. You couldn't even binge watch a full season of your favorite TV show in that time. It's this brilliant, almost jarring detail that underscores just how incredibly quickly human perfection was lost. Honestly, it was practically over before it even began. Let's visualize this entire timeline to really grasp the wild asymmetry of the human experience. At hour 0, we have creation from the earth. By hour 5.5, paradise is already lost. Then follows, many years of exile on Earth. That's the long, arduous human experience that makes up all of history. And finally, far off in the future, the era of the second coming. What you should really take away from this is the stark contrast. We have a fleeting 5.5 hours of perfection set against the vast, sprawling reality of the journey that follows. The fall wasn't some slow decline, it was a sudden, immediate drop. And that brings us to our final phase, the cosmic conclusion. We're zooming out from Adam's very brief micro journey to the massive macro implications found at the very end of our source material. The text suddenly expands outward with this massive statement from God, and I blessed all my creatures, visible and invisible. Suddenly, the scope isn't just about one guy and his 5.5-hour mistake anymore, it includes absolutely everything. It's a universal scope of blessing that sweeps across all of creation, the visible things we know and the invisible things we don't, despite humanity's fall. The divine plan just continues, totally undeterred by our missteps. And the entire text culminates so beautifully right here. And I blessed the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, on which he rested from all his works. This is how the narrative ultimately resolves. After the creation, the incredibly rapid fall, the exile, and the blessing of literally all creatures, we reach ultimate peace. The cosmic cycle of creation and fall is finally bookended by divine rest. Which brings us to a final thought for you to take away from this explainer. If paradise was lost in just 5.5 hours, is the true purpose of our spiritual journey the eternal rest we earn upon returning? I really want you to deeply ponder that. If perfection was that fleeting, maybe the whole point was always the journey back, the resilience we build in the exile and that enduring promise of restoration. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.